Welcome to What to Watch Wednesdays, hosted by someone's favorite film buff, Nathan. I love movies and I want to share that with you. From old originals to cult classics and foreign favorites, along with straight up drivel, WWW is your place for all things movies. Stick around and we'll leave you with a movie to watch over the weekend with your family or that special someone. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. 88.1 The Burg, your movie central. Welcome to What to Watch Wednesdays. My name is Nathan, the host of What to Watch Wednesdays, the show where we talk about 3 movies all in the same night. And tonight, oh boy, ladies and gentlemen, tonight's episode of What to Watch Wednesdays is a very special episode for me. Specifically because I've been excited for it for a very long time. How long, you may ask? Well, let's just say I've been excited for this episode since the beginning of spring quarter. That's actually kind of a lie. I've been excited for this episode since the start of the year 2025. That is also a lie. I would say that I've been excited for tonight's episode of What to Watch Wednesdays since September of 2024. That's also a lie. Since the summer of 2024. I've been excited for this episode for a very long time. Let's put it that way. Tonight's episode of What to Watch Wednesdays is going to be tied in directly with a movie coming out this Friday, May 23rd. It is called The Final Reckoning. Of course, the subtitle, or more so the prefix before that title, is Mission Impossible. And let me tell you, audience, I may not sound that excited, and that's because I'm holding in my excitement as much as I possibly can. I am so very, very, very excited for The Final Reckoning, Mission Impossible, or Mission Impossible The Final Reckoning. And I figured, what better way to celebrate hopefully the end of the Mission Impossible film series than by talking about the first 3 movies. So with that being said, the 3 movies on our watch list tonight are going to be Mission Impossible from 1996, Mission Impossible 2 from 2000, and Mission Impossible 3 from 2006. And again, you may be thinking, man, he doesn't sound that excited. I'm holding back. I'm really holding back. Because let me tell you, part of the reason I'm so excited for this is because this is one of my favorite action series of movies of all time. I love the Mission Impossible series. I love pretty much all of them, except for one of them that we're talking about tonight, but we'll get to that later. So, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll jump into the first Mission Impossible movie. 88.1 The Burg, your movie central. Welcome back to What to Watch Wednesdays. And for our first movie on the watch list tonight, we will be taking a look at Mission Impossible from 1996, available to watch now on Amazon Prime with a Prime Video subscription. For the basic plot summary of Mission Impossible, we follow Special Agent Ethan Hunt, played by Tom Cruise, as he goes on a top secret mission. On this top secret mission, his entire team is killed off except for him. Oopsie daisies, and naturally, because the CIA are involved to some degree in this top secret mission, the CIA looks at the fact that Ethan is the only surviving member and go, I think Ethan Hunt may have killed his entire team. Now, naturally, because we followed him for the first 20 minutes of the movie, we know that Ethan Hunt did not, in fact, kill his entire team. And he knows that better than anybody. So he goes on a very long chase to figure out who indeed was responsible, who killed his team, and more importantly, how does he stop them and stop many other people in the process. Everything I just described to you may sound like it was novel, but keep in mind that Mission Impossible is probably one of the greatest classics in terms of action movies from the 90s. Released in 96, pretty smack dab in the middle of the 90s, close to 95. And it's a huge classic in a lot of different circles. It's well known among the action sphere, among the 90s sphere, among the Tom Cruise sphere, among the just TV show adaptations, among the spy movie sphere, among the thriller sphere, among the stunt sphere. There's just so many different places that Mission Impossible is just regarded as a classic. And to add on top of that, it is well regarded as a classic in the sphere of Nathan's brain and Nathan's memory, core memories when it comes to movies. Because let me tell you, I watched Mission Impossible for the first time when I was a teenager, and I absolutely loved it. And I watched it many times more over the years, and I still loved it. I don't think Mission Impossible has ever caused me to go, the first one at the very least. I've never watched the first Mission Impossible movie on a subsequent rewatch and gone, man, that wasn't as good as I remember it being. No, if anything, I will admit that the movie is better than I remember it being as a teenager. And oddly enough, I don't even think that really changes my opinion on it. I still feel that same amount of excitement and entertainment out of it that I did as a teenager. I just now understand and respect it more as a quality product and understand sort of the inner workings of it a bit better. But that doesn't mean I honestly really increase my opinion of it. That sounds like a weird backhanded compliment. So the way I'm going to say it is this. I don't love it any more than I originally loved it. I like it a lot more. I don't think it's a perfect movie. I think it's really good. I just will say that my opinion has never decreased of it. And by extension, I think that could result in a sort of growth, because no matter how much I grow and change as a person, I feel the exact same way about it that I did the first time watching it. It's a strange sort of comparison, and it's very difficult to kind of explain fully, but the way I'll put it to you is this, before moving on to some of the more specific aspects of it. I didn't feel the need to rewatch the first Mission Impossible movie when getting ready for tonight's show, simply because I knew that I would like it just as much as I had when I watched it the first time around. And I was like, if I watch this and my opinion changes, I'll be very surprised, or I may just not be having a good day. I'm confident enough with how many times I've seen it that I can say with true confidence, I don't think it would have changed, even remotely, what my opinion of the movie itself is. It's very difficult to get a movie that does that sometimes, but I think the first Mission Impossible movie achieves it great. I mean, there's so many iconic scenes. You've got that first 10 minutes where his entire team is killed off. Good heavens, that scene can hurt depending on when you watch it. There's many other scenes later in the movie. For some reason, I've always remembered the part where Ethan escapes the cafe that he goes to meet up with a CIA agent, and he throws a stick of bubble gum at the window, and the window blows up. For some reason, that has stuck in my memory ever since I first watched it. I know why, because it is strange, cool, exciting, out there. It makes sense in context. There is reason for it. But it's also watching Tom Cruise throw a stick of bubble gum at a window and watching said window explode. So without any context, it doesn't make any sense, which is really, really funny to me. So many things about just that moment alone I love, that I think you can understand why I said earlier, I don't really feel the need to rewatch the movie, because if I could just stand here and talk about how much I love the bubblegum part for like even 30 seconds, you probably understand that I like the movie. There's so many other parts. I mean, of course, you've got the part later in the movie that's technically a spoiler, but I won't spoil too much of it, where Ethan is hanging on a wire above a floor, and he's trying to get into a computer, and he's wearing the glasses, and he's being lowered down on a wire, and that whole thing has been parodied so many different times. You've got many other scenes after that. Maybe at least one other scene after that. I won't say many. I'll backtrack and say maybe just one. But one really good scene after that is also very memorable and iconic. And many scenes in between all of those moments I just mentioned are iconic, memorable, interesting in their own little ways. I will also say that they're all paced phenomenally. Each one bleeds nicely into the other. There doesn't feel like there's any downtime that isn't deserved or needed to keep it from feeling too rushed. But it also keeps the tension up. I will say that it's not the most exciting movie ever, but when I say that, keep in mind that that's coming off of it is still an extremely exciting movie and very thrilling and definitely keeps your attention. So when I say it's not the most exciting thing ever, that doesn't mean it's like saying it's not the most exciting thing since sliced bread. It's still very exciting. It's just that sliced bread, in this weird analogy, is the most exciting thing ever. So of course it's never going to live up to the ultimate thing. But it's still good in its own right. I think the last thing I will say about the original Mission Impossible, to kind of close out my thoughts, is that no matter how much I try, I don't think I can find anything perfect about the first Mission Impossible movie. But I have to try even harder and cannot find a single thing wrong with it. And that is probably the heaviest recommendation I can give for it. Very sad that I can't say the same about the second movie, but we're going to take a quick break before we get to that. Stick around. 88.1 The Burg, your movie central. Welcome back to What to Watch Wednesdays. And for our second movie on the watch list tonight, we will be taking a look at Mission Impossible 2 from 2000, available to watch now on Amazon Prime with a Prime Video subscription. For the basic plot summary of Mission Impossible 2, we follow Ethan Hunt as he must track down a defected agent from the IMF, that being the Impossible Mission Force, because it's Mission Impossible. Anyways, this agent has defected from the IMF, and he has stolen a rare disease known as Chimera in a tube or something. And Ethan must track down this defected agent and get back the virus that he stole. Naughty, no good. So you may have just heard that and thought, I don't think he's taking the plot summary of Mission Impossible 2 that seriously. Why on earth would you not be taking it seriously? I thought you liked this series. Yes, I do like the Mission Impossible series. Very astute observation. I do not, however, like Mission Impossible 2. I did not like it when I first watched it, and I have not gone back to it since. I tried to watch the first 20 minutes of it in preparation for tonight, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't get through it. I couldn't, in good conscience, sit there and say, yes, I'm going to spend my time on this movie again. I suffered enough the first time around, let's put it that way. I suffered the first time watching Mission Impossible 2 to the max degree that I'm willing to suffer through a movie for. And that's saying something, considering that I watched all 6 of the Sharknado movies, but that's not really important. Let's move on from that and discuss why on earth I could be so heatedly saying that I did not like Mission Impossible 2. Let's break it down here. We have a director of movies, as they tend to do. We have the director John Woo, who is known for being very over the top and for doing some crazy ideas. He tends to be lumped in as one of the best action directors because he uses a lot of slow motion, he uses a lot of diving, he uses like birds. He's the one who directed the movie Face Off with Nicolas Cage and John Travolta, and I like that movie a lot. Weirdly enough, I didn't like Mission Impossible 2 nearly as much, because if I'm being honest, when you take that over-the-top nonsensical atmosphere and transport it into a spy thriller, I don't think it really works. I don't think it has enough irony. I think it's trying to take itself too seriously with such a goofy, over-the-top atmosphere that it just folds in on itself. I think, in my opinion at least, Tom Cruise is not really much of a, I'd say, over-the-top action star, and that's coming from somebody who knows pretty darn well that he does a lot of over-the-top stunts. I still hold that opinion that he's not there for the over-the-top campy atmosphere of things. He's there to risk his life and look good while doing it. when it comes to cheesiness, you don't often look good while doing the life-threatening stunts. That's kind of the distinguishing factor in my mind at the very least. And again, this is all conjecture. This is partially my own opinion, mostly my own opinion, but I stand by it pretty strongly. I don't think Tom Cruise really fits into the scenario that is cooked up in Mission Impossible 2, and that's on top of the fact that I don't really care about the plot even remotely. I don't care about any of the other characters. I just kind of watched it for the sake of it, and by the end of it, I was like, why did I spend my time watching it? Never again. Despite all of the things that I've just mentioned, with it being not that good, I will admit that it also felt so painfully generic that it's very difficult to find distinct things to talk about when it comes to this movie. And I've already said quite a lot. So that kind of says everything you should need to know. But there is one other detail. And this is what I will give to people who say, oh, you're biased because XYZ when it comes to this movie specifically. I don't know why anybody would think would have a bias towards Mission Impossible 2 and would like it, but they're well within their right to do so, and I'll explain my own bias against it very quickly. When I first watched Mission Impossible 2, I was dealing with a very personal issue. I had some friends that were kind of in the middle of a falling out over some relationship struggles. I can't go too much further than that, but we'll leave it there. Some friends just weren't having a good time together and were on track to not being friends anymore because of a very specific reason. And I had figured out what reason it was that they were no longer going to be friends, and it angered me very deeply. I blamed both of them for different reasons, but I blamed one of them a lot more than the other. And because of that, when watching Mission Impossible 2, it was the day that I had kind of figured out what was going on, and so I was just sitting there stewing in my own anger over a personal issue while trying to watch Mission Impossible 2. That resulted in me not really liking the movie all that much. So I will give it that when having two friends that are in kind of a bickering match and on the verge of no longer being friends anymore, for multiple other reasons, you may not enjoy Mission Impossible 2 that much. My counterpoint to anybody who would bring that up against me and say, that's the reason why you didn't like it, it's a decent movie. In my opinion, I honestly think if I had been having the best day of my life, I would have not liked the movie just as much. That's my opinion, but at the same time, I tried watching it for 20 minutes, and I just was like, I'm done. I can't do it. I can't do it. I legitimately just couldn't do it. Nothing in there was giving me anything. I felt nothing. If anything, I just got a little more ticked off than I would have expected to be. So it's not all my fault, and it's not all circumstantial. Keep that in mind. I will admit that I have a very different opinion of Mission Impossible 3. Thankfully, because I didn't watch it when my friends were in the middle of splitting apart. So that's good, but I will say that my opinion is significantly different. So we're going to go to break, and when we come back, we'll jump into that. Stick around. 88.1 The Burg, your movie central. Welcome back to What to Watch Wednesdays. And for our third and final movie on the watch list tonight, we will be taking a look at Mission Impossible 3 from 2006, available to watch now on Amazon Prime with a subscription to Prime Video. For the basic plot summary of Mission Impossible 3, we follow Ethan Hunt once again as he must face a ruthless and wretched international criminal named Davian. And things get very intense because Davian is heck-bent, yes, on destroying everything Ethan loves, including his new wife. And let me tell you, once again, things get intense. Things get very dark. They get a lot darker than the other movies. They get very gritty, very, very gritty. And it gets to a point where I'm sitting there going, You know what? It's very dark. It's very gritty. It's very intense. It's too much. It's a bit too much in comparison to the other ones. And that's going off the fact that the first 10 minutes of the first movie is Ethan Hunt's entire team dying. So when I say, because I'm the one talking, when I say that it gets a bit too intense and a bit too dark, I feel like that should carry a little bit of weight, considering where this franchise started. With that in mind, let's break down some of the details when it comes to Mission Impossible 3. I think the big issue is that when it comes to being dark and gritty, you can kind of draw a line in the sand on how far you should go with things, and eventually you cross the line if you're going too far with it, because that's how that works. I think with Mission Impossible 3, part of it could be a victim of it being from 2006, but I think even from the first 30 minutes of it, it was just going a bit too far, a bit too fast, a bit too soon. Part of that has to do with the color scheming, I will say. I feel like this movie is a really good encapsulation of what would happen if Michael Bay directed a Mission Impossible movie, and then he was like, we gotta make it dark for no reason with very little motivation. That right there, I think it's the heart of it. It's dark with no motivation. I think the first Mission Impossible had every reason to be dark. It was trying something different. And even then, that's going off the fact that it was adapted from a TV show that definitely didn't have that tone. So it was trying something new, and some people didn't like that about it. Some people, like the original creator of the first TV show, of the original TV show, Mission Impossible, did not like the movie because of that. So even with that, it may not have had all of the inspiration in the world to go as dark as it did. But that doesn't mean that Mission Impossible 3 should have gone further with that and really gone off of that motivation of nothing that the first movie even had. I will give the first movie props in the sense that it was trying something new with the formula it was given. Mission Impossible 3 is trying something with a not established formula quite yet and pushing it way too far beyond the envelope. How do I put it? I keep just saying it, and if I don't give you specific examples, I feel like I'm just going to start repeating myself. So I'll say this. If the first 10 minutes of your movie, no, first 5 minutes of your movie shows your main character handcuffed to a chair, facing down the main villain of the movie, and the main villain is holding a weapon to his wife and saying, I'm going to count down from 10, and then she's going to die. I feel like that goes a bit further than I was expecting or needing it to go in comparison to the movie that has his crew die in the first 10 minutes. You know what I'm saying? Like, the first 10 minutes, that's kind of enough. That's kind of the limit. When you're doing the whole, you're in a hostage situation in the first 5, feels a bit too far, doesn't it? Doesn't it just feel a little too far? Could you see me saying that and maybe agreeing with that just a little bit? Like, let's just acknowledge, if you don't agree with me, you could maybe at least see where I'm coming from. Okay? That's all I'm trying to say. All of that even goes to show that despite it going too far, I have just skipped over one detail, that Ethan Hunt also has like a wife in this movie, and they just have him have a wife now. I get that there's been like a time jump between the third and the second movie, but he just has a wife now. Okay, cool. Could we get some, like, I guess, some indication of them being together before we introduce her being tied up in a chair and about to die? Could we please get something along the lines of happiness before the darkness? Please, please, just a little. Again, the big issue I have with going this far is that nothing about the second movie, as awful as it was, gave them motivation to go this far with it. Nothing about the first movie, as good as it was, gave them motivation to go this far with it. And that especially extends to the villain. My goodness. I will admit that the main villain of Mission Impossible 3 is quite good and quite memorable and deserves the props he gets because he is portrayed by the late, great Philip Seymour Hoffman. Philip Seymour Hoffman, my goodness, my gracious. I am very sad that he has passed away. He was a wonderful actor, in my opinion, and he served as a great villain actor. He's kind of just edgy for the sake of being edgy, and it feels like that frustrating sense of not having any dimension as a character, just being an unstoppable villain to annoy the audience, to give them some form of catharsis when he hopefully loses by the end of the movie. And again, that's with not spoiling the movie, so I won't say if Ethan does win or not. But, I mean, the man counts down from 10 while holding a weapon to a woman's head. You count down from 5 most of the time. You want to give the... I'm not even... Okay, no, I'm not even going to do it. I'm not even going to break down how you go through hostage scenarios, because that is illegal. Do not do it. I do not condone it. In terms of a movie's pacing, and in terms of a scene, counting down from 10 is kind of infuriating because it feels like you're artificially inflating how much time you're giving the main hero just for the sake of watching him suffer with very little motivation. And that's accentuated by the fact that we're just opening on it in the first 5 minutes. I hope you understand where I'm coming from when I mention all of this. Without enough context, without enough really setup, all you're really doing is making us hate the villain. And that means that we later won't have any feeling for the villain later on. Again, that goes back to the atmosphere, that overall feeling of edginess for the sake of being edgy. And again, I think it goes to show that it's something I feel like Michael Bay would do. I wouldn't know because I don't watch Michael Bay movies. I would probably get overstimulated and it would give me a headache. But I can tell you right now, this movie was overstimulating me and giving me a headache when I tried rewatching it in preparation for this. And I did get further into it than Mission Impossible 2. I will admit, 3 is better than 2. But it still gave me a bit of a headache and I still got pretty overstimulated while watching it. So, there's that. If you really want to hear it, I will say my closing thoughts, which is the third movie is not bad. It's not the worst one, but consistently speaking, I think these movies get better after the fourth movie came out, mostly because it learned to have fun with its spy scenarios. It learned how to have fun with the villains while taking itself just the right amount of seriousness. English. The third movie took itself a little too seriously for my taste. And hopefully you will understand a little bit more about where I'm coming from this Saturday from 8 to 10 p.m. for What to Watch Weekends, where I talk about the next, I suppose, 3 or 4 and possibly 5, I can't count, 5 Mission Impossible movies, because I'll be talking about 4, 5, 6, 7, and I will be going to see Mission Impossible 8, The Final Reckoning, at some point this week. So please be sure to tune in to What to Watch Weekends Saturday night from 8 to 10 p.m. for that. I will be back next Wednesday from 8 to 9 p.m. for another episode of What to Watch Wednesdays. If you want to follow along with What to Watch Wednesdays or What to Watch Weekends, follow What to Watch Wednesdays at What to Watch Wednesdays, all one word, no caps, no spaces, on YouTube and Instagram. And again, I'll be back next Wednesday telling you all what to watch. Good night, everybody.